we ready? All right. We apologize for the delay. We were having some streaming issues, but we welcome you tonight to the Yukon City Council Yukon Municipal Authority work session. It is September 20th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. We are currently at the council chamber in the Centennial Building at 12 South 5th Street in the great city of Yukon, Oklahoma. Tonight, we're going to discuss, first off, the finance report, and I will turn that over to City Manager Kretschmar.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to introduce Philip Mary. He is our treasurer. He's going to give the report for our finances.
Good evening. There's a stack of pages. It should look like this on top, a bunch of numbers and bank accounts. That's where I'm going to start. It's been since February when we looked at this last, so I'm just going to kind of highlight some of the larger changes in any of the accounts. And feel free to stop me at any time if you have any questions. So right off the bat, the sinking fund, if you'll notice, it's way down. It's not down, we just had a payment. So we had a $655,000 principal payment towards our GO bonds since then. So that's why that is down. And then going down to just under the YMB section, it's the 96th Street bond. It's up a little bit, and that is because payments come out on the 15th and the 25th. So funds have been moved for our revenue note debt service, and they just have not been taken out yet for this month. Then pulled cash down next is a little high. That is our primary account. So that is where things like, for example, ARPA right now is some of the larger changes to that. We are currently expecting our second tranche of $2.5 million at the end of this month or sometimes next month. So we're still waiting on that, but that's $2.5 million, and we received the first tranche in September of 21. Below that, we have all three pest accounts: police, fire, general employees, as well as the reserve account that are all pretty steady. They tend to grow every month as sales tax comes in, with the exception of the reserve. But then on the back page, we have hotel motel, which is down since we last looked at it, but we just had Freedom Fest and Rock the Root, and that's pretty much its largest expense for any given fiscal year. Below that is the TIF, and we have a small CD at Interbank that just kind of sits there growing interest, and we have it available if we need it. Are there any questions? Okay. Next, we'll go to the revenue note summary pages. So this is just a summary page for each of our outstanding revenue notes. And as you can see, the 2017 note has been fully withdrawn. It actually shows we've spent more than what we had, but that's just our closeout withdrawal that includes the interest it earned over its life. So I'll list just a few projects that one helped fund, such as the Chisholm Trail Park parking lot expansion, the Master Trail along 66, the Taylor Park restroom, as well as the community center kitchen. And on the next page is our 2018 note, and it is almost used up. It has $5,600,000 left, and it is reserved right now for State Highway 4 for phase 2 of that project. But the 2018 note has helped fund the Wilshire Bridge replacement, as well as several drainage repairs along State Highway 4. Then turning to the 2019 note, it's also, as you can see, fully used up, or almost fully used up in this case. But this is where we paid back in April of 20, a little under $4.4 million to ODOT for I-40 and Frisco interchange, and I'll expand upon that in a little bit. But in some other projects were the Health Center Parkway turn lanes, Wilshire Road paving, and the Gregory Road Bridge rehabilitation project were funded through here. And then we have the 2020 note. It's our latest, and it's also set aside right now for phase 2 of State Highway 4. And we are still waiting on those final numbers to come in, so we don't know exactly the amount of that project, so we're trying to reserve what we can for it. But it has also helped fund 11th Street improvements, the Ranchwood Playground, and Garth Brooks traffic signal improvements. Are there any questions over the revenue notes?
Thank you. Well done.
Thank you. And if you're ready, I'll cover item 2 just real quickly
Okay.
too. It's a budget amendment that's on for later tonight. Speaking of the I-40 Frisco interchange, ODOT is wrapping up their audit, and the bid came in less than expected, so we are expecting back just under $865,000. We've been informed that we should receive it by the end of this month or early October. As of this afternoon, we had not received it yet, but we're waiting for it. So,
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
I would also like to add, as that is item 3 on the budget amendment, the money that we are supposed to get back, which is $863,840.85. We would like to use that money towards the ACOG grants that we are applying for. It's gonna take $600,000 for the Garth Brooks, resurfacing. So all of that money, it's going to take every bit of that in order for us, because some of those have matches, for us to be able to apply for those, we need to use that money for, those grants.
Do I need to have that exact figure in here? Because it just has 865,000.
Yes, Philip's gonna transfer 865,000
Okay.
is what the budget amendment, it's just.
right, but we won't exceed what we get in. We're going ahead and moving forward with the amendment now, so when we receive the funds, there's less delay to be able to spend them.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any questions? All right. That moves us then, thank you so much. I apologize. You know, the harder you try not to cough, the more you cough. All right, we did number 2, and so Ms. Crutchmar will send it to you for discussion of purchasing ordinance.
And I'm going to call on Doug Schiffers to discuss this. No, it's okay.
Madam Mayor, as you probably know, all of our purchasing procedures are governed at the state level by the Public Competitive Bidding Act of 1974, Title 61. We have an ordinance of our own. It's ordinance number 1218, and it was passed on February 19th of 2008. So what this discussion is about is we feel like it's time to update the purchasing ordinance because we're not buying things the same way we did in 2008 anymore. One of the main things that would be helpful to our staff, right now, our city manager is restricted by a spending limit of $25,000. We would like to bump that to $50,000. That is still far less than the state statute guideline of $100,000, and that is for purchasing things, equipment, supplies, and also contracts if you want to build something or you need to construct something. The thing you have to keep in mind is that when we make purchases, almost all of them are already approved by City Council in the budget. And so I've got some examples here. You know, vehicles. There was probably a time, maybe in 2008, when you could buy a truck for $25,000 or less. Those days are long gone. But most of them are $46,000, $48,000 right now. And the other thing that's happening with vehicle purchases is a lot of times we're made aware of a vehicle that some other city didn't want, and we can get it if we can move on it right now. And if the city manager has the authority to just sign off on that, then that can be very helpful to us. Repairs for things like water and sewer lines, I think Robbie would agree that those kinds of materials, costs are way up. It's hard to get quotes. Some contractors won't quote you because they can't guarantee that they can honor that quote just based on the price of materials. Another example I have is that in the budget that we passed for this year, there's a project for the exterior renovation of the Yukon Community Center. That project was estimated to be 32 to 35,000, something like that. If under the old ordinance or the ordinance that exists today, we'll have to bid that thing out. $25,000 is not much of a project these days.
It's 50,000 in that.
Well, we think it is, and that's where the comfort levels seem to be amongst the staff, that we'll keep it at 50, and that gives everybody some say in it, I think. You can see that council will continue to approve purchases for more than 50,000, just like we've been doing for smaller ones now. If there's an emergency, then we'll have an emergency proclamation, and that's the time that you set up some guidelines for any purchasing that you think might happen in that. We looked around our two neighboring cities in Canadian County. Mustang, this makes us pretty close to what Mustang's doing. El Reno seems to go just straight off state statute, so they're up to $100,000 that somebody can approve. We are keeping some extra internal controls. Right now, when a purchase or a project gets to $2,000, we ask for quotes. We're going to move that up to $5,000, and so anything $5,000 or less, no special action needed to purchase. If it's between $5,000 through the city manager's proposed spending authority of $50,000, then we'll get 3 written quotes. Anything above that, we'll go through the bidding process that is in place now. So the second page of this handout is something that came from the state, and it's a flow chart that just it's not the best flow chart I've ever seen, but it gives you a little bit of an idea there that where we're going on this, and you can see the state's limits, $100,000 on contracts, anything between $10,000 and $100,000 for written quotes, but again, we talk about that comfort level. $5,000 is a good place to start.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions?
I mean, I'm with you. $25,000 doesn't buy anything. I used to think $1 million was a lot of money, and in the city terms, it's nothing.
What we'll do is we'll get with Mr. Reinhardt, and
Okay.
he'll craft an ordinance that replaces some of the sections of the old ordinance with these new amounts, and bring it to council, and you guys can decide whether or not to approve it.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Okay. Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
That ends our study session, and so we will adjourn and meet back here at 7 o'clock. Thank you.
Stop it.
I know.